Joining us now, we have Luke Broadwater, congressional reporter for the New York Times, April Ryan, White House correspondent and Washington bureau chief for the GRIO, and Elise Jordan, former aide to George W. Bush and the George W. Bush White House and the State Department, as well as an MSNBC political analyst. Luke, we're going to start with you. From your reporting, what are you expecting the relationship to be between President-elect Trump and Congress, especially after what we saw in that budget battle last week?
Right. Well, we learned two things from the budget battle last week. One, congressional Republicans are, of course, very responsive to nearly every demand of incoming President Donald Trump. They really wait for his cue on many things, especially to tear things down. When he said essentially to kill the first spending bill, they promptly did that. That said, there is an area of disconnect between the House Republicans, especially those members of the Freedom Caucus, and Donald Trump, and that is raising the debt ceiling. We saw a minor revolt against Donald Trump from those members of the Freedom Caucus. They don't want to raise the debt ceiling. And so that's going to come up again, probably in the summer. And Donald Trump did not want to have to deal with this issue on his watch. He wanted to get this done under President Biden, but it's looming over his head for probably the first year of his presidency.
And I want to follow up really quickly. When it comes to Speaker Johnson, what is your understanding of how Trump is feeling about him? Because the signals seem to be that it's not necessarily, he won't even have to fight against him in the speaker race. Just not throwing his support behind Johnson might be enough to bounce him out of that position.
Yeah, I mean, Mike Johnson has worked overtime to try to ingratiate himself to Donald Trump. He is down there all the time at Mar-a-Lago. He's going to UFC fights with incoming President Trump. But it may not be enough. Donald Trump reportedly was displeased that Johnson couldn't get the debt ceiling deal done under President Biden. There might be a minor brewing revolt against Johnson's leadership among the House Republicans. And it's only going to take a handful of House Republicans to kick Johnson out of the spot if they want to do that. And so they will be looking very closely at Donald Trump's cues. Does he give a full-throated endorsement of the speaker, or does he withhold some support?
April, Paul Kane for the Washington Post put it like this: Johnson's dilemma is the same one that bedeviled his predecessor, Kevin McCarthy, the always smiling speaker who proved so ineffective he didn't last 9 months in the job. Both found themselves in a predicament which the White House GOP held a majority in principle, but in practice could not come together to govern. What do you think about that? What's your take?
Well, remember, you had Matt Gaetz, who was really pushing to pull him down, speaking of Kevin McCarthy. But now the question is, who is with Donald Trump to pull down Speaker Mike Johnson? And whenever Donald Trump shows an inkling of dislike of even a Republican, there are those who will follow through and present to him negatives. But we'll have to wait and see how this plays out. As the previous pundit said, yes, they have gone to games and done things together. But at the end of the day, Mike Johnson did not do what the president wanted. He did not help to raise the debt ceiling, to spend more. And there are a lot of fiscal conservatives that did not like this. But at the end of the day, what's going to happen? Are we going to keep kicking the can down the road, or are we going to acquiesce to what the president wants? And then we'll have tariffs and debt ceilings, raising the cost of everything and pushing for more spending of federal government. We have to wait and see how this all plays out.
Elise, what do you think Democrats' role in all this, especially the upcoming speaker election, is going to be? Should they save Johnson, or do you think they're going to lean into the chaos?
I think at this point, no one knows what is the best option, given that, the chaos, who actually benefits from the chaos? Not the American people, not Democrats. Nothing really stands to get done in the theater of it all. So probably for their benefit, maybe stick with the horse that and stay with Mike Johnson, and maybe behind the scenes. I don't even know if there's anything that could be done to save him, though. To April's point, Donald Trump decides that he should be gone, he will be gone. And, there's also just even the casual signaling of, if Trump might not even do a full-throated, let's cut off his head, but his minions will try to satisfy him if he gives even the slightest clue that that's what he wants.
Annalise, are there any legislative issues on the horizon where you see there could actually be a sliver of some bipartisanship, whether it's cutting government waste or maybe something like the housing crisis, which seems to be impacting people, across the political spectrum?
Well, we have already seen some bipartisan support for the Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy, Doji. Everyone in Congress knows that there's a ton of waste, and both sides talk about wanting to do something. And there's slivers of hope that maybe this could be it's going to break a lot and it's going to be painful, but that maybe having outsiders come in and look at the problem could have a modicum of positive change. We really just don't know. It's going to depend on all of these huge promises that Donald Trump has made and what he actually is going to follow through on and try to do versus what's he just talk about, what's all talk.
All right, trying to find a little potential positivity here at the end of the year. Luke, we've been talking about things on the House side, but there's a whole other end of that building. What about the Senate? Are Senate Republicans as in line with the MAGA Trump agenda as Trump would like them to be?
I would say not as much. They're getting that way. It used to be that the Senate, even though it was Mitch McConnell was the leader, and many Democrats view him as an extremely conservative Republican. He was not always eye to eye with Donald Trump. And I do think we could see some tension emerge with John Thune as the Republican leader in the Senate. John Thune is a traditional Republican. He has, of course, bent the knee to Donald Trump. He has said he wants to enact Donald Trump's policies as quickly as possible and appoint all his nominees as quickly as possible. But there will be times when John Thune will, I think, stand up for the traditional wing of the Republican Party, for keeping government open, for instance, for not suspending the Senate's constitutional duty to vet nominees. And so I think inevitably there will be some sort of clash between Donald Trump and John Thune. I don't know exactly which of these fights it will be, but almost certainly I would predict that will happen within the first year of the Trump presidency.
So, April, if Trump can't get everybody in his party lined up behind his agenda, is that agenda at risk? What things can he accomplish without congressional support, and what things is he really going to need everybody to get done?
Well, this president is going to have to work to unify, because as we saw, that this was actually a bipartisan passed budget bill that's been kicked down the road until next year. But at the end of the day, this president would want to have the American public come together, the court of public opinion, as well as congressional leaders, because one, he's got 18 months before there's another election in the House. And what he doesn't want to see is the House turn Democratic. So he's got to try to work together and have some sense of unity. If not, if he goes straight rogue like he has done in the past, there could be some consequences at the polls for him, starting with the House. It could turn Democratic. But at the end of the day, let's look at, the first thing he's talking about. The first issue is this mass deportation. Does he have bipartisan support? Definitely not. How will this be worked out? What's the cost, as he's talking about tariffs, et cetera? That's a big piece of this puzzle that really could be an albatross around his neck, starting off his presidency on January 20th at noon.
But Elise, as we saw in this budget battle, it's not just getting Republicans in the House and the Senate to get along with the White House. There was this wrench, or rather this Cybertruck, that got thrown in the mix, and that's Elon Musk. Where do you see him factoring in, playing in, and complicating things for the incoming president?
Well, for now, Donald Trump and Elon Musk are getting along. How long is that really going to last, though? I think there should be a betting pool on how can this relationship go the course of time, or is it going to be yet another up and down tumultuous? Donald Trump has to show who really is the boss, and at the end of the day, that's him, not Elon Musk, the world's richest man. And so I wonder if it's going to go, if it's going to be a romance that ends sooner rather than later. But the reality is, it is probably going to end at some point. So it's just a matter of time.
All right, we'll have to see. Luke Broadwater, April Ryan, and Elise Jordan, thank you so much for joining us.